Hello. Um, my name is Charles Webster Bear, and I'm in Redmond, Oregon, USA. And today is December 30th, 2020. And my website is globalinternetgovernment.com. And today I'm going to talk about everything. I may leave a few things out. I'm going to focus on 5 topics. 1, the universe. 2, depopulationism. 3, GIG, which is global internet government. 4 is FogBank, and 5 is me. Now, I've spent the last 35 years talking about depopulationism. I spent the last 20 years talking about global internet government. I spent the last month talking about FogBank. And I've spent the last half century talking about me and the universe. So I think I've got this, hopefully, pretty much down at this point. So let's get started. This known physical universe began 15 billion years ago, or expanded to a size that was large enough for humans to comprehend 15 billion years ago. So 15 billion years ago, this known physical universe was a plasma made up of dark matter and dark energy. And it expanded very rapidly, or continued to expand very rapidly. And as it expanded, it cooled and formed quantum particles. Quantum particles like leptons and photons and quarks and neutrinos and bosons. And as this energy plasma of quantum particles continued to expand, it cooled and formed protons and neutrons and electrons. And as this subatomic energy plasma continued to expand and cool, it formed hydrogen atoms. And as these hydrogen atoms continued to expand, gravity acted upon them to form hydrogen clouds. And then gravity continued to act on these hydrogen clouds to form fusion and fission, which created stars. And gravity then acted on these stars to form galaxies. And the universe continued to expand, and the universe is expanding right now and picking up speed. And the galaxies are expanding faster and faster. And 5 billion years ago, the sun was created, and the leftover stuff from the sun were the planets that orbited around the sun. And so Earth was created with the sun 5 billion years ago. And it was just a blob of lava, which cooled and formed the crust, and then gases escaped and formed the ocean. And then 4 billion years ago, due to random chemical reactions, life was created, bacteria. And bacteria reproduced and mutated and evolved into algae, which used photosynthesis to create oxygen and the atmosphere. And this algae mutated and evolved into other forms of ocean plant life, which mutated and evolved to form land-based plant life. And then plants mutated and evolved into fish, which evolved into reptiles, which evolved into mammals, which evolved into monkeys, which evolved into apes, which evolved into humans, which evolved into robots, which will continue to evolve into other silicon-based life forms and eventually colonize the universe. And that's the history of the universe. So let's back it up 3 million years ago and go to South Africa And then that's when Homo sapiens, us, evolved from Homo erectus. And then we had to get through the jungle. And we did. And then about 100,000 or 200,000 years ago, we left Africa through Egypt and colonized the rest of the planet. So about 10,000 years ago, you've got civilization, societies, cultures, language, farming, domestication of animals. And then 2,500 years ago, you've got the creation of advanced modern civilization. In Greece, 2,500 years ago, they created the foundation for Western civilization, which still exists. Science, philosophy, theater, math, democracy, etc., on and on and on. And around the same time, 2,500 years ago, in India, there was some cat named Buddha who was grooving around, and he was thinking philosophically about, if I'm dreaming, how do I know if I'm dreaming? If I'm not dreaming, how do I know if I'm not dreaming? And he came to the conclusion that he knows his thoughts exist, but that's all he knows. Everything else might be an illusion. So if the universe exists, great. And if the universe doesn't exist, then it's an illusion. And his thoughts are not an illusion. So his thoughts are his soul, and everything else is an illusion. Or the universe is real, and he doesn't have a soul. It's one or the other. It can't be both. So this philosophy traveled east to China, where they were sophisticated and intelligent enough to understand what he was talking about. And it traveled west to the Middle East, where they were not that sophisticated to know what he was talking about. So they misinterpreted it twice. The first time it was called Christianity, and the second time it was called Islam. And then many shenanigans ensued and continue to ensue. And so the Italians took all the Greek democracy and civilization and science, and they brought it to Europe. And then we had the Dark Ages. And then we had the Renaissance. And then we had the Industrial Revolution. And then we had technology. And then we had America. And then we had freedom and equal rights and democracy. And then we had a few wars. And then we had the 60s and the 70s. And in the 60s and 70s, people started talking about things like environmentalism. We don't want to kill the planet Earth with overpopulation. We don't want to destroy the environment with pollution. And people talked about it and talked. Well, in the 1980s, China actually did something about it called depopulationism, the one world, one woman, one child policy. So in the 1980s, China did depopulationism, which is the one world, one China policy. And that was the first time any government or anybody has ever done anything to help the environment. And it was the only time anybody's ever done anything to help the environment. And so depopulationism is really the new religion of this millennium. And I figured that out in 1985 when I was in high school. And I said, well, I'm going to explain this to everybody. Well, I'm still explaining this to everybody. And I'll continue to explain this to everybody. Depopulationism means that it's illegal and immoral for anybody to reproduce a second time in this millennium. And depopulationists like myself want to create a significant and sustained and immediate decline in the human population on Earth. And we want to do this because that way the number of people on Earth will eventually arrive at a sustainable level, which is a number for future generations to determine. And I'm going to guess it's around 2 or 3 billion. This will allow the environment to heal, and this will allow trees to grow back. And then in the future, when humans want to breathe oxygen, there'll be enough trees to produce enough oxygen for humans to breathe, and we won't all suffocate to death. And that's a good thing. So basically, right now, the number of people on planet Earth is going up, and that's the wrong direction. That's a suicide course. We're killing the planet with human overpopulation. We don't have the right to kill the planet. We don't have the right to threaten the planet. We don't have the right to destroy the environment. We don't have the right to threaten to destroy the environment. But that's exactly what we're doing, and it's wrong. So we need to stop now, everybody. And that's depopulationism. It's the only rational and fair way to save the planet. And it's time for Americans to stand up and save the planet. It's time for Americans, and especially Oregonians, to stand up and lead by example and say, look, this is how we're going to save the planet, depopulationism. Let's get started. So in the future, you should only vote for candidates that publicly declare they're depopulationists. And you should run for office as a depopulationist. And you should share this video, and you should make your own video about these topics. So that's depopulationism. Depopulationism is the goal. And the way to achieve this goal is global internet government, GIG. GIG is a world government that I created in the year 2000. And GIG is going to unite the planet politically and economically. GIG is going to work with the United Nations to unite the planet politically with democracy and freedom and equality and reproductive rights. Reproductive rights means that all people have the right to total and free access to all forms of birth control, including abortion. Any government that does not completely support this is an illegitimate government and will be replaced quickly and peacefully by a legitimate government. So GIG is really a foundation that allows all humans to participate in and contribute to the world government. GIG allows everybody to understand what the world government is doing in relation to them and their country and worldwide. And GIG is going to work with the International Monetary Fund to unite the world economically with transparency and balanced budget amendments and trade agreements and regional currencies. And GIG is going to monitor every financial transaction by every government on the planet Earth. And this way, everybody can see immediately and publicly exactly where all the money's going, who's getting it, what they're doing with it, how much they're getting, when they're getting it, et cetera, et cetera. So that's GIG. GIG is world government. It's going to unite the planet towards its common goal, which is depopulationism. Okay, so I talked about the universe, depopulationism, GIG. Now I'm going to talk about FogBank. FogBank is a cyber currency that I created last year. The unit of currency for FogBank is the FogBuck, F-O-G-B-U-K, plural FogBucks, F-O-G-B-U-X. Anybody can buy any amount of FogBucks for 1 penny each. The value of the FogBuck is going to fluctuate constantly from zero to as high as it goes, back down to zero, up and down. That's the nature of cyber currency. There's There's also something called a FOGBIC, FOGBIK, plural FOGBICs, FOGBIX. Now, value of a FOGBUC and a FOGBIC is always exactly the same. A FOGBUC is something that somebody purchases from FogBank for 1 cent, and you can buy as many as you want. A FOGBIC is something that FogBank gives to somebody. Okay, and FogBank's going to give 10,000 FOGBICs to everybody. You're welcome. Everybody on the planet right now. Bang. Now, FogBank can suspend or terminate any FOGBIC at any time for any reason, including no reason at all. However, if you buy a FOGBUC, then that's yours forever until you spend it. So this is all 100% transparent, okay? For every FOGBUC, each FOGBUC has its own individual unique FOGBUC number. Each FOGBIC has its own individual unique FOGBIC number. Each FogBank user has its own unique individual FogBank user number. Each FogBank transaction has its own individual unique FogBank transaction number. Every single FOGBUC and FOGBIC is going to be accounted for publicly online immediately. So everybody everywhere can see where all the money is, who's got it, where they got it from, when they got it, how much they got, etc. 100% transparent. And there's a ceiling and a floor. No one can have more than no one can have more than $1 trillion American dollars worth of FOGBUCs. And no one can have less than 10 FOGBUCs or FOGBICs. So that way, there's a huge gap between the top and the bottom, but this gap can be shortened and decreased and shrunk, you know, because maybe we take the ceiling, which is right now at $1 trillion, and maybe we lower that ceiling to $500 billion. And maybe we take the floor, which is right now 10 FOGBICs, and we raise that floor to 20 or 30 FOGBICs. You see, FogBank can decrease the gap between rich and poor slowly, if it feels like it. And it feels like it. But anyway, this is how we're going to start out. So that's FogBank. So I've talked about the universe. I've talked about depopulationism, which is the goal of human beings in this millennium. I've talked about GIG, which is the plan on how we're going to achieve that goal. I've talked about FogBank, which is going to be the new currency for the planet for this millennium. Now I'm going to talk about me, my favorite subject. My name is Charles Webster Bear. I'm 51 years old. I'm a Buddhist. I'm an agnostic. Don't have any kids, never been married, single, straight. I was born and raised in Santa Cruz, California. Went to high school in Newport, Rhode Island. In 1994, I graduated from the University of Hawaii at Hilo on the Big Island. In 1995, I moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. In 1999, I moved to Portland, Oregon. In 2000, I created GIG. And in 2007, I moved to Bend, Oregon. And in 2014, I moved to China for 3 years. And in 2017, I moved back to Bend. And then 2019, I moved to Redmond. Now it's 2020, and in a couple days, it'll be 2021. So, in 2019, I created FogBank. And I'm running for mayor of Redmond, Oregon in 22, and I'm running for president of the United States of America in 24 and 28. I'm running as a libertarian. And a depopulationist. Libertarian means that I'm for more freedom and less government. Libertarian means I'm fiscally conservative and socially liberal. Libertarian means I take all the good stuff from the Republican Party, less government, and I take all the good stuff from the Democratic Party, more freedom. And I put them together. And it's delicious. So please vote for me, Charles Webster Bear, for mayor of Redmond, Oregon in 22, and for president of the United States of America in 24 and 28. Vote Bear if you care. I'm for the death penalty, Texas style. I'm for legalization of all drugs. I'm for legalization of suicide. I'm for negative immigration, which means I think that the number of people leaving the country should be more than the number of people coming into the country. I'm for isolationism, which means I think the planet can solve its own problems. The US isn't going to get involved unless the UN says everything's cool and all the regional countries in the region are willing to contribute militarily and financially to the resolution of the issue. So I'm an isolationist. And so that's my political thing. And yeah, so that's me talking about everything. I probably left a few things out, but then I can just make another video about that stuff. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Have a great 2021 and peace in the hood. Adios.